Sports kata is a discipline in karate where the goal is to demonstrate the standardized sequence of karate techniques better than the opponent. For the most competitive style of karate competitions under the WKF rule set, there are more than 100 official kata from more than 4 styles, which can be used in competition. In this video, we're gonna go through the 10 most used kata per gender group from high-level kata tournaments. And if you compete, hopefully this video comes in handy to decide which to use for your competition. Something to note, the kata list in this video is based on how many times they have been performed during the 2024-2025 Tier 1 Karate Kata tournaments, essentially the Karate 1 Premier League, plus I have also added the European Senior Championships as well in this list. Would also be interesting if you do a prediction and comment the kata what you think will come out on the female category and on top of the male categories, then compare them at the end. Sochin is a classic kata from the Shotokan style, which actually uses a rooted stance that is not often used in other Shotokan kata, called Sochin dachi or also known as Futu dachi. Kata is relatively short and very power and explosive movement based focus with some awkward transitions. Despite this kata is top 10 in male category, in female category it was only used once during the 2024-2025 period, and it was in the bronze match of the Cairo Premier League. This kata is primarily performed by high-level Shotokan competitors who are prepared to make a deep run in the bracket, typically in the early rounds of the tournament, to save more advanced kata for later rounds, as you cannot repeat the same kata across the first 5 rounds. In the female category, Hunsu, this kata is considered as one of the most advanced kata in the Shotokan style. This kata is very dynamic, has ground kicks and a 360 jump with many dynamic transitions. Despite this is a top 10 kata in terms of usage in the female category, it has a really low win rate in female kata. That is because the Shotokan athletes use it for certain matches as the all-in pick. It is relatively easy to make mistakes and errors with the intensity of high-level events, which causes the win rate to be so low. Anan is a medium-length kata, which contains a lot of open palm techniques and specific ways how to do transitions, which is not that common in other kata. This kata showcases a lot of power and speed in the athlete, because this kata consists of multiple explosive movement chains. Also, this is the most mislabeled style kata, where most people call it Shitaryu, when nowadays everyone basically does the Rueryu version. Additionally, this is the first men's kata which can appear in all phases of the tournament, while during the 2010s it was one of the most used finals kata. Nowadays, it is more commonly used in the early or middle rounds of the event. Goji Shiho Dai is one of the Shotokan sister kata from the Goji Shiho series. This kata is one of the longest in the Shotokan style and has a good balance of explosive and slow control-based movements. Goji Shiho Dai is basically in every female Shotokan kata athlete arsenal, and in the Premier Leagues, almost every Shotokan athlete does it during the group stage, which assigns them to be one of the most important kata for competition for Shotokan, as most Shotokan female athletes struggle to get even out of groups in Tier 1 competition. Kankusho is a very dynamic Shotokan style kata. While it does not have the biggest win rate, it is still one of the main kata for Shotokan athletes in competition. This kata is filled with really fast combinations, which under pressure can be rushed or be blended too much, thus cutting the technique, which makes it hard to get a high performance rating with this kata. However, it has shown the most success in rounds 2 to 4. There is also one interesting thing, that this kata is mainly used by non-Japanese Shotokan athletes. Surprisingly, no one from Japan has done this kata during a Tier 1 international competition. Additionally, it was the kata used for one of the biggest upsets in recent sports kata history, where Italian athlete Alessio Ghinami be Japan's best Shotokan athlete at the time, Moto Kazumasa. Anan Dai is the more advanced version of the kata Anan from the Ryuryu style. This is basically a more complex version and with more technique combinations. The thing with this kata is that since it has more explosive technique combinations, with the speed that is required at elite level, it forces mistakes out of the athletes, thus not making this kata give us high ratings for performance compared to other kata. But especially during the start of 2025 season in the female category, it has been started to be more used as a round 2 or round 3 kata, with successful outcomes in this round range. Pappuren is one of the kata that has the most visible roots from White Crane Kung Fu, where the form was adapted into the Shitoryu style by one of its founders, which is why it looks so much different than the other Karate Kata. Kata itself is one of the longest in Karate as a whole. It does feel as a mix of Shitoryu base and some additional unorthodox movements which do not really appear in Karate. Pappuren is used like as a bit of an all-in kata for athletes with Shitoryu and some even with Goju-ryu backgrounds. In men's category is more often used in the early rounds. Usually, the kata is more used by athletes who have more control on slower movements and can amplify it as their key skill set. Goju Shiho is the other sister of the Goju Shiho series for Shotokan. This kata is really similar to the Dai equivalent and is more often used as it's basically the first version of both of them. Additionally, with the Sho variant, it is likely to have less mistakes, which makes it as more of a safe pick for athletes. Goju Shiho is in the same realm as the Dai version in terms of being as one of the most important competition kata, so it is used either as the opener of the tournament or for more important matches of the tournament, especially in the female category. One thing to note is that this version has statistically higher win rate odds than the Dai version. First repeat kata of the list, and for the repeats, I'm only gonna go into the specifics, how it behaves in the specific sports kata category. Men's Goju Shiho Dai has a similar premise as the female category, where it's one of the main opening kata for Shotokan athletes. However, this one is more often done during rounds 2 to 4, with sometimes being done as the key match pick for certain matchups. Ohandai is a kata from Ryuryu style, which has a lot of explosive combinations and is structurally kinda close to Anandai. This kata has quite secret origins, as Ohandai and its other version, Ohan, were originally thought only in Okinawa, which is an island in the Pacific and the birthplace of karate. One of the main masters of the style, Tsugo Sakamoto, started to popularize it through his most successful student, Ryoki Yuna, who not only won the Olympics but also used this kata for the Olympic gold. Due to that, it is still one of the most popular kata nowadays. Despite that, this kata in the female categories of people who use Ryuryu kata in their kata list for competition only use it during the early rounds, as it kinda has the similar premise as Onsu from Shotokan athletes, where it's used as the all-in kata. Due to this kata being that wildcard pick from certain athletes, it does give a relatively low win rate in total in the female category. Anandai is the second most used men's Ryuryu kata and appears in all phases of the events, in the early rounds, in the decisive rounds, and in the medal matches as well. One of the things of this kata in men's category is that it's really hard to get it right for it to bring a win in the match, but when athletes are feeling it well on the competition day, then it can bring a win against most kata if it's done well. Kururunfa is a kata from the Goju-ryu style, and it is also the shortest female kata in this list. This kata is really heavy on the hip work, as it does not have that many dynamic movements, but mainly transitions in short stances and a lot of slower control-based techniques that demonstrate the precision of the athletes who use this kata. Kururunfa is mainly used in the early rounds, but is also a bit of a throwaway kata. But it is the #1 kata for upsets in the female category. Suparinpei is also known as the most advanced kata in the style of Goju-ryu, but in sports kata, the Shitoryu version is just as commonly used. This is also one of the longest kata in the WKF list. However, it is long since it has a lot of repeating movements compared to other longer kata. Due to that, it is also considered one of the most boring kata from the advanced kata selection. However, what it makes it stand out in high level, you need to have a really good control and speed management with all of the movements, and especially hip work is being put on display. Additionally, this kata is mainly used in rounds up to semifinals, and less people are putting it as their pick in medal matches despite being one of the more advanced kata in karate. Shibana no Kushanku is one of the dozen variations of the Kushanku kata. This variation for female category is mainly used in the Shitoryu style version. While the kata itself originally came from Shorin-ryu, with sometimes Shodokan and a mix of other Okinawan-based variations are also used in competition, especially in the male category. Also, it has no connection to Shotokan. This kata is generally super complex, filled with diverse and explosive movements which really tests a lot of the athletes. But it also can showcase a lot of athletic ability from them. Due to that, it is one of the most used kata during the medal matches, which just amplify its popularity and the usage from the upcoming athletes. Ryu Kyuna quite popularized male ohandai during the 2010s and is still the most used Ryu kata in competition in this period. Despite this kata is the third most used, to actually win with it, you have to be physically in a better condition than your opponent, as it displays a lot of power-based movements, especially in the male category, where basically everyone is with elite physical preparation. The kata itself is a lot of used for potential upset picks, and used by many people for more important matches of the tournament. For some, it's the early rounds, for some the decisive rounds, for some the medal matches, which puts it as one of the most used kata in the list. Female Chatenyara Kushanku is almost in the same realm as the Chibana version, but it was a really popular and is still one of the most top picks for competition since Rika Usami and Sandra Sanchez, who are considered one of the best of all time, have used it as one of their key final kata for female category, where it's still the case with other practitioners as well. This kata has the most sub-style variations of any kata in this list, where basically there are no two identical Chatenyara Kushanku. As always, it gets adjusted to fit the athlete better or due to sub-style school practicing with some differences and their variations. However, the most used variation is from Inua Ha Shitoryu, which has been used by Sandra and Rika when they were competing as well. Nowadays, it is one of the most used female kata, as it's one of the key kata display basically all elements of a good kata athlete. Unsu is the second most used kata in the male category. That is not only because most of the athletes in the male category are from the Shotokan style compared to the other styles, but this is a kata which is also used by them after the first 5 rounds, where people can repeat any of the 5 kata, and this is one of the most common picks after that cycle. One thing that it sets it up a tiny bit is that not everyone from Shotokan puts it in their first 3 rounds, thus making it appear less often, since it can be a bit of a more riskier pick compared to the one that is in number 1. Suparinpei is the second most used kata in the female category. Why it's so high is not only it's one of the most advanced kata, but it also has a lot of style crossovers, where athletes do it in the Shitoryu, Goju-ryu, and lately even the Shotokan-based variation is appearing more in the competition, precisely in the female category. This kata kinda hits all of the boxes of a commonly used kata, where it's one of the more advanced ones and as a contender to be performed in all phases of the tournament. One thing that set it back from number 1, it is not often used in medal matches anymore during this period compared to some other kata. But it is still in almost every Shitoryu and Goju-ryu athlete-based kata pools, with additionally appearing with some female Shotokan athlete kata pools as well. What also makes it more exciting to use it, because it has a relatively consistent win rate and a kata is not that likely to make mistakes at, except in the Shotokan-based variation, which is way more complex than the Shitoryu and Goju-ryu variations. Goju Shihosho is the most used kata in the male category at elite level. It is because not only Shotokan has the most athletes at this level proportionally to the other styles, but also this kata is basically the main competition kata for this style. It can be used in all phases of the tournament, especially in the early rounds where it's basically done by every Shotokan athlete, with additionally it being one of the top picks for medal matches. This is more consistent than Unsu and less prominent for massive mistakes, which makes it as the most used kata for male athletes. Pappuren is basically the female kata. It has more than 20% of appearance rate, which basically makes it being performed in every second or third match during the entire tournament. Since in female category there are more high-level non-Shotokan practitioners than in the male category, it is basically in kata pool of almost every non-Shotokan female athlete. And by most of them, they are using it already in the early rounds. And it's really often to see Pappuren versus Pappuren during these tournaments as well. Additionally, this kata with the slower transitions makes it more accessible and is more viable for wins, as technically even if you're not that athletic, but with good technique, it is doable to create an upset against athletes as long as technique and rhythm is really clean, which makes it even more enticing pick in this category as well compared to the rest of the kata from the list. These were the 10 most used kata per category. If you are interested, this is how the list also compares to the list of kata which were used in the 2020 Olympic Games when kata was a demonstration discipline. So you can see some of the trend differences from this period. However, this is combining both gender categories. And if we use the same principle and combine the 2024 and 2025 stats, the list would look like this. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to share your predictions in the comments and what you thought would have been the #1 pick. Also, would be nice if you can check out the Discord and the socials as well. Either way, that'll be it from me. Thanks for watching.